On March 12, 2016, in Grand Prairie, Texas, a horrifying tragedy unfolded: the brutal death of 4-year-old Leiliana Wright. Her story is one of unimaginable cruelty, neglect, and the devastating failures of the child protection system. In her final hours, Leiliana endured relentless abuse, beaten mercilessly, and bound inside a closet, left to suffer alone with no one to save her. A fragile life was taken far too soon, leaving behind a haunting reminder of the horrors of domestic violence and the negligence of those who were supposed to protect her. Join Hidden Truth as we uncover the shocking details behind this heartbreaking case, a story that demands to be told so that no child must endure the same tragic fate as Leiliana Wright. Join Hidden Truth as we uncover the shocking details behind this heartbreaking case, a story that demands to be told so that no child must endure the same tragic fate as Leiliana Wright, where every unsolved mystery contains secrets that want to be revealed. Step into the darkness and explore them with Hidden Truth. Don't hesitate to leave a like as an encouragement for us, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell to update the most classic cases. Leiliana Wright lived with her biological mother, Jerry Quezada, 30, and her mother's boyfriend, Charles Pfeiffer, 36. From the outside, their small home appeared like any other, a seemingly ordinary household. But behind closed doors, it was nothing short of a nightmare for the innocent little girl trapped inside. She had no safe haven, no comforting arms to hold her when she was scared, and no kind words to soothe her when she cried. Instead, she was met with cold neglect and harsh discipline. The people who were supposed to protect her were the very ones who hurt her the most. Leiliana's childhood was not one of laughter and joy, but of silent suffering. Each day was a battle for survival in a household where she was treated not as a cherished daughter, but as an afterthought, a burden to those who should have loved her unconditionally. The innocence of her early years was stolen by cruelty and neglect, leaving her trapped in a world where no one seemed to care. Her mother's addiction controlled the household, and with it came unpredictable bouts of anger, abuse, and abandonment. But as tragic as it was, the worst was yet to come. Leiliana's final days would be marked by unimaginable pain inflicted by the very people who should have been her protectors. That day, Jerry Quezada and Charles Pfeiffer did what they often did. They used heroin, sinking deeper into the haze of their addiction. Their drug-fueled stupor blurred the lines between reality and delusion, making them even more unpredictable and dangerous. While under the influence, they noticed something insignificant, but in their twisted minds, unforgivable. Little Leiliana Wright had drunk a juice box that they had intended to save for her younger brother. A harmless action, the innocent mistake of a child who didn't know any better, but to Pfeiffer and Quezada, it was an act of defiance, a crime that in their eyes warranted severe punishment. Fueled by rage and cruelty, Pfeiffer, a man with a rough, hardened exterior and a violent temper, decided to discipline the 4-year-old. But what he called discipline was nothing less than pure torture. At first, he bound her tiny hands behind her back using a belt and electrical cords, rendering her completely defenseless. Then, with zero remorse, he suspended her inside a closet, forcing her to balance on her knees while being strung up in an unnatural and painful position. She couldn't move, couldn't free herself. She was utterly helpless. But that wasn't enough. Pfeiffer's sadistic punishment continued for hours. Using a leather belt, a bamboo stick, and other household objects, he brutally beat the helpless child, delivering blow after blow without mercy. Her delicate skin quickly bruised and swelled, dark purple and blue welts covering her arms, legs, back, and even her tiny face. Through it all, Jerry Quezada stood by and watched. She was not just a silent witness to her daughter's suffering. She was a willing accomplice. Her motherly instincts, if they had ever existed, had long been drowned out by her addiction. Instead of stopping the brutal assault, she joined in, striking her own child as if she were nothing more than an object to be broken. For hours, Leiliana endured a living nightmare, trapped in a dark closet, bound, beaten, and terrorized by the very people who should have been protecting her. Her tiny frame grew weaker and weaker with each passing moment, her cries gradually fading into silence. Then, at some point, her little body could take no more. Leiliana lost consciousness, slumping lifelessly within the confines of the closet. But even as she lay there, unresponsive, Quezada and Pfiffer did nothing. They didn't check her pulse, didn't rush her to the hospital. Instead, they dismissed her condition, assuming she had merely passed out from exhaustion. Rather than seeking help, they continued their drug-fueled night, ignoring the fact that their little girl had stopped moving. What should have been a moment of panic, a desperate attempt to save their child, was instead met with callous indifference. By the time they realized the gravity of what they had done, it was already too late. The next morning, on March 13, 2016, the house in Grand Prairie, Texas, was eerily silent. The horrors of the previous night still clung to the air, but for Jerry Quezada, the weight of what she had done or allowed to happen had yet to fully settle in. As the morning light filtered through the windows, Quezada finally decided to check on Leiliana. But when she reached out and shook her tiny daughter, there was no response. Panic gripped her as she realized Leiliana's small body was completely still cold to the touch. She wasn't breathing. A jolt of fear rushed through Quezada. The little girl was dead. For the first time, reality seemed to break through the fog of addiction and violence. In a desperate attempt to cover up the truth, Quezada frantically dialed 911, her voice shaking with artificial hysteria. When emergency responders arrived, they were greeted by a scene of horror. The tiny body of Leiliana Wright lay limp, her skin marred by deep bruises, open wounds, and unmistakable signs of prolonged abuse. The injuries weren't fresh. They told a story of suffering that had lasted for months, maybe even years. Her face, arms, legs, and torso were covered in welts, some so deep that they had turned nearly black. There were ligature marks on her wrists, evidence that she had been bound for an extended period of time. As paramedics examined the child's lifeless body, Quezada, desperate to avoid suspicion, began weaving a web of lies. Through feigned sobs, she told them that Leiliana had fallen in the bathroom and that her injuries were the result of a tragic accident. But the first responders weren't fooled. One look at Leiliana's battered body was enough to confirm that this was no mere accident. The bruises, some new and some old, painted a clear picture of ongoing systematic abuse. The medical team knew instantly that what they were dealing with was not the result of an innocent fall, but a brutal, sustained assault that had ultimately cost the child her life. As they worked to preserve the crime scene, Quezada's false story began to unravel. When questioned, her account kept changing, and her erratic behavior raised further suspicion. It wasn't long before detectives stepped in, determined to uncover the horrific truth hidden within the walls of that house. Little Leiliana Wright had spent her final hours bound, beaten, and alone. The people who should have protected her were now at the center of a murder investigation. The police launched an immediate investigation, and their suspicions quickly fell on Jerry Quezada and her boyfriend, Charles Pfiffer. The evidence was overwhelming. This was no accident, and they needed to uncover the full truth of what had happened to 4-year-old Leiliana Wright. When Quezada was taken in for questioning, she initially tried to shield Pfiffer, sticking to her fabricated story. But the detectives were relentless, presenting her with irrefutable evidence: the bruises, the wounds, the inconsistencies in her statements. As the hours passed, the weight of the truth became unbearable. Faced with no way out, Quezada finally broke down and confessed. Through tear-filled admissions, she revealed the horrifying details. It was Pfiffer who had inflicted the worst of the abuse, lashing out in uncontrollable rage. But Quezada didn't stop him. She stood by, watching, allowing the torture to happen. When the detectives pressed further, asking why she had let it go on, Quezada had no real answer. She simply hung her head in silence, consumed by a shame that had come too late. A thorough autopsy was conducted, and the results were even more horrific than anyone had imagined. Leiliana Wright had suffered unimaginable pain before her death. Her tiny body bore deep bruises and lacerations from repeated beatings. Multiple bones were fractured, including ribs and limbs, indicating sustained, forceful abuse. Her internal organs had been severely damaged, with injuries so extensive that her death had been slow and agonizing. Medical examiners also found older wounds, confirming that this was not a one-time assault, but the tragic result of long-term abuse. Medical examiners also found older wounds, confirming that this was not a one-time assault, but the tragic result of long-term abuse. Both of these monsters were arrested and brought to trial. Jerry Quezada, the mother who had failed to protect her own child, pleaded guilty and agreed to cooperate with authorities in exchange for a lighter sentence. In 2017, she was sentenced to 50 years in prison for her role in Leiliana's death. Charles Pfeiffer, the man who had brutally tortured and killed a defenseless 4-year-old, faced trial in 2018. The jury wasted no time in delivering justice. He was convicted of capital murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He would never walk free again. During the trial, one of the most heart-wrenching moments came when Leiliana's biological father took the stand. As the jury was shown the gruesome images of his daughter's broken, battered body, he broke down in uncontrollable sobs. His pain turned to rage as he looked directly at Pfeiffer, his voice shaking with fury and grief. "You are a demon in human form. I hope you suffer every single day, just like my baby girl did." Justice had been served, but it could never bring Leiliana back. Her tragic story remained a chilling reminder of the horrors of child abuse, the failures of those meant to protect her, and the irreversible cost of turning a blind eye. Leiliana's case sparked outrage across the community. Many questioned how Child Protective Services, CPS, had failed to intervene in time, despite receiving multiple reports of abuse before her death. The fact that Leiliana had been crying out for help, yet no one had stepped in to save her, left the public furious and heartbroken. Following her tragic murder, state officials launched multiple investigations into CPS to determine how and why the system had failed. Lawmakers and child welfare advocates pushed for reforms to ensure that no other child would suffer the same fate as Leiliana Wright. Her death became a painful wake-up call, forcing authorities to reassess the effectiveness of child protection policies and address the gaps that allowed innocent children to fall through the cracks. Leiliana Wright was only 4 years old when her life was cruelly stolen. A childhood never fully lived, a future never given the chance to bloom. Before her tragic death, she endured unimaginable pain, a reality too horrifying for anyone to accept. Her passing was not just a heartbreaking loss, but a devastating wake-up call about the horrors of child abuse and the failures of the child protection system. Leiliana's story serves as a painful reminder that society must do better. This was not just another case, it was a lesson that demands urgent action, stronger protections, and a collective responsibility to ensure that no other child suffers the same fate. Her voice was silenced, but her story must never be forgotten. By raising awareness, demanding justice, and working toward a better system, we can prevent future cases like hers. Thank you for joining us today. If you enjoyed this story and want to dive deeper into more intriguing mysteries, be sure to subscribe to Hidden Truths and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update.